This is a bit of an impromptu video, but I thought I would elaborate on how I use this Tascam mixer with all of this gear here, including 2 tape machines, well, 3 tape machines, delay, effects, and 13 synthesizers, 3 drum machines. There's quite a lot going on, so I thought I would clarify it because there's a lot of people that have some questions. So first of all, this is, and then again, this is impromptu, so bear with me on the orientation of the camera and everything. All right, so this, lighting is terrible. This is the Tascam M-1600 mixer. It's a 24-channel board, 8 bus. Now the 8 bus comes, it's a very important factor in all of this. So the 8 bus is how I'm routing everything. So first, the easy part, you can see that there's 24 channels. And I have a lot of hardware. We'll start with the first 2 channels, which channels 1 and 2 are hardwired basically for this preamp here. So I got a mic plugged in here, and that goes through the compressor straight to the mixer. So channel 2, it goes straight to the mixer through the compressor as well, and I typically will plug in a bass guitar, electric guitar into channel 2, and that's hardwired to the input channel here. And you can see I have more than 4 plugs. We'll get into that, but the rest is really just a lot of these synthesizers. So the idea is I can just turn everything on and be able to hear it. So everything, all of these synthesizers that I have connected, drum machines, everything, is all connected. I have so many, in fact, that I actually have a sub-mixer right here. This sub-mixer has a number of update channels and an iPod dock. This is the Alesis iMix. So it's just a sub-mixer for additional synths. I have a couple rack synths over here, and we can flip some of those on. And those rack synths are the JV1080, the Korg Triton rack, and the Proteus 2000. I also have my media, so I got a cassette deck, just a stereo deck here. I have the Pioneer CD burner and player, and my record player here. So this is all connected basically to here. So when I want to hear a record, I hit monitor, and then that is actually the digital output is going into the MPC, so I can sample records. So I have to have my MPC on if I want to hear anything in my records coming through there. So again, really, it's just like all of this stuff, like these synths and everything, they're all connected to this mixer. And some of them are connected to the sub-mixer. I can see right here that basically all my inputs are filled. So these are typically, you can see everything's hard panned left and right. So these are basically stereo tracks. And then I also have a few effects loops here. So one effects loop is obviously the space echo, so I can send that out through the effects loop of whatever channel I want to hear it. And then the other one is this Lexicon rack unit here, which is the other, searching for discs. Oh, well, that's no good. Then those are routed in the effects loop, which can be routed through the buses. So those are the inputs, synthesizer, everything. Again, the idea is that I can just turn it on and hear anything. Routed. So now for the tricky part. I have 2 tape machines. I got the reel-to-reel, and I've got the Tascam. Those are routed, and this is going to be hard to demonstrate, but there's a cable in the back called DB25, and I have DB2 cables two snakes. So on the other end, it looks like this. These are going into the back of the tape machine, in and out. So it's an 8-channel snake, kind of like this, but it's not 1/4 inch on the end. You can't really see it back there. It's a real pain to get back there. I'm sorry I can't demonstrate that. But each of these 8-channel parts have 2 dB25s. So this one has dB25 in and out going to this tape machine. This middle section is this tape machine, and the final section is actually my audio interface. So my audio interface is connected to my computer right there, and I can route 8 channels in and out. And that's all done through dB25. There's a switch up here that I can turn on and off, so I can select the input so I can hear the tapes or whatever's directly plugged into the channel. And that is all routed. So let's say I have my microphone connected here, as I demonstrated earlier, to this preamp. Let's say I want it to be recorded on track 8 of any given tape machine. Well, that is done with these buttons here. I can select 7 and 8 and pan this whichever one, and then it's going to be sent to one of these buses that can be then recorded. So it's pretty simple in terms of that, because this is these are my 8 buses, so I can route any channel to the to any track through the buses. And so if I want more than one thing to go through it, and I can, so if I want a drum machine to be, 2 different drum machines to be recorded on the same track, I'll just put those 2 channels on, say, 1 and 2, and then when I record on the input, it will be on tracks 1 and 2. So the bus routing is kind of convenient. It gets in the way sometimes. For example, if I have this tape, if I'm playing a track back on the tape, then I want to use that channel. I have to plug it into another channel so that I can record that. It's kind of an inconvenience. I haven't run into that problem too often, but it's one of the drawbacks anyway. But that is how things are routed. I could look at the questions there, if there's any questions. Hello, Wilmer from the Netherlands. Love it. New Zealand, Netherlands, great. Any questions so far on how that's routed? I know it's kind of inconvenient, but you can see, for example, if I hit push record there, we can hear the metronome, and we can see that the stereo is routed there. And that's really how I use my mixer. The mixer is more of this is the hub, so that it makes, really the idea, again, is so that I can just turn something on, and I think there's a tape, so I have to flip between, this lighting isn't very good, is it? I have to flip through the tape input and outputs for that. So it's, yeah. It's how I'm trying to have a step back there so I can get any. So yeah, again, the idea is so I can turn everything on and just hear it and be able to record it. And I'm actually out of channels. I can't plug anything else in unless I take something out. This is only running in mono, for example. And, you know, you got to make decisions and compromises and whatnot. But it's a lot of, you know, it makes life a lot easier for me. And again, like ultimately the idea is to just be able to turn on, and if I want to record to this machine or that machine or through my interface, I can. Now, the last little part of the equation is the 4-track and how I have that routed. I have like a stereo mix coming out into the inputs here, and it's not plugged in all the way to avoid feedback or loops. And that is so that I can, anything plugged into this mixer, I can just record into this tape machine. But if I want to get this tape machine out into, say, maybe I want to bounce the tracks into another machine or into my computer, that's what these cables are for right here. I can utilize those, unplug those channels and plug those in, so if I can mix down and get the individual tracks if I'd like. So far right now for this, I have this in the effects loop so I can sample whatever I recorded to tape, or I can basically use it as an effects processor. And the new one's coming out, and I'm thinking about selling this one and upgrading to the Mark II, which seems quite appealing. It's you know, I know this one has a certain sound that the new one doesn't, but you know, whatever. I'm not a purist about that. I'm more interested in the ease of workflow, because this one is a little more cumbersome. I like the idea of having the screen on the Mark II, but I do use that a lot in the loop of the 4-track. So that's kind of its own little sub studio. I often plug in oddities into that, such as I got some keyboards and other items that I plug in once in a while. Like I'll just get a fancy and I'll grab one and just plug it in through maybe one of the pedals or another effects unit and just record it raw here. Just kind of a more fun thing, and then I can use this as the loop. But it's easy. I can just plug this one into through there too. But right now, this is hardwired to the effects loop on the Tascam mixer. So that makes life a lot easier for me to just be able to route things through here. This is like the main hub in terms of all that routing. So the simplicity of being able to turn something on and hear it is really what matters. So you can see the input lighting up there. All right, we got a question here. Wilmer asks, do you think a company like Tascam or Foxdex will release a Porta Studio reissue since they're getting popular again? I would love them to. I don't have any word that they are, or I don't think there's really any rumors as far as the 4-track goes. I would love, not necessarily a reissue, but I would love a ground up design that entails like the ability to like a built-in interface, so you can record your 4 tracks to your computer, or maybe you can send tracks from your computer into the Tascam. I think that would make it super useful in a more modern context. I would buy one quickly. I think if they were to reissue it, I would hope that the mechanism would be very good, but I don't know. I mean, it's a very complicated mechanical thing. You can see why they're kind of, you know, most companies are going solid state, and I don't know if the manufacturing is legitimate, but I would love to see them reissue that with a built-in interface. That would be great. I hope they do. I really do. I would buy one. But yeah, I love how everything is just routed. It's really the DB25 cables and these buttons here that enable me to just kind of, there's 3 things: the interface, this tape machine, and this tape machine. They're all connected through the DB25 snakes that I have, and RCA on the other side. Yeah, Wilmer, thanks for watching. And then it's all routed through the buses, which are some tracks. So having 8 buses and 3 items that are 8 tracks, it works fine for me. I mean, I would love to be able to get a 16-track reel-to-reel, but I don't know if that's quite feasible. I would have to reconfigure a whole thing. So, Unknown Underground says he recently purchased a Boss BR1180 after watching my previous video. What's your setup advice? Oops, sorry, it disappeared. What's your setup advice to reduce hums when connecting so many hardware devices? The nature of utilizing something like this is it is a bit noisy. I have at least 3 power conditioners to get all this to work, and you're never going to completely eliminate hum. I'm not afraid of noise. I'm obviously working on tape, and there's inherent noise and hits and stuff, but really having a clean mixer. So are you subbing? Are you summing? Oh, thanks. The hair. Thanks. Let's see. So Unknown Underground, are you summing a bunch of things into your BR1180? Because when I was using the BR1180, I was summing different. I was basically summing, like recording one thing at a time. I didn't have a lot of different. I didn't have a lot of different things connected at once. It was just one thing at a time. This kind of situation just makes it easy for me to have, if I want to have a MIDI sequence, which is typically what I'll do, I'll have a MIDI sequence that I program on my MPCs, because every one of these synthesizers is addressed to a different MIDI channel, and that's a whole different video. But I can hear multiple different things and then route them to a tape machine so that I can work quickly. Original, yeah, it's one of the analog ones. This is like the secret sauce of everything. You can see it's posed right above the mixer there. That's in the, again, the loop of the mixer to make things a lot. It's like the sauce, you know what I mean? Like it's just the thing that I can build whole. I can just plug into this and just make whole songs only using this kind of thing. It's ready to go, and all I have to do is just turn one of these knobs and send. Like if I create a quick sequence, I'll demonstrate it. So if I go. So there's the drum machine, and I'll turn these buttons on because they're routed. So now I just have to turn the knob, and now we're sending. We're sending that through here, and I can use it like a performance, like. So it's just really quick and easy for me to just set up, and that's how that's routed. And it's routed to, I can just turn a knob on any channel and we can hear it through the space echo. But the other cool thing I've got, again, is this lexicon unit. It's hardwired to the mixer, so I can use it in the loop, but it also has a digital in and out so that I can, this is a 18i20, so I can use it with that. I need to experiment with that a bit more. I've just been started working in Ableton more extensively and taking advantage of automation in Ableton, because you know that, and it allows me to get a performance and get the feel, but then I can make more arrangement decisions in the DAW. Let's see. You've got stuff there I can only dream of. Let's see. Is that, yes, it is an original Space Echo. Wolmers says I've got a lot of stuff that he could only dream of. He's got plugins. Oh, no, I'll send. So he's gonna give me his address so I can know where to send stuff to. A lot of this stuff, like this mixer, was pretty cheap. I spent $100 on it plus three dot machines. No, it was the DTRS machines. I did a video on those Tascams. I spent $100 on that. I originally, previously to the 238, I'm sure if you've seen my channel, I've discussed that, but I had the Tascam 688, and it was a little bit, I didn't end up liking the internal routing on that machine. It's kind of cumbersome. So when I came, someone was basically giving this mixer away, and I was like, that's, I can actually plug in more things. So when I got this mixer, I sold the other, I sold the 688 and got the 238 and integrated that with this mixer, and it's a good pairing. I've been using that for a lot of tracking. So if I play back the tape, what I have to do, you can see let's rewind. I have to rewind it a little bit, but when I play back the tape and type the inputs there, then you can hear what's on the tape, so you can see the LEDs are there. But in order for me to hear it through the mixer, I have to press these buttons here. Sorry, I'm trying to do the camera work. And then everything is routed, right? Mute, solo. Wow, I did something to my mixer and I don't know how everything is routed here. This is kind of messy, isn't it? Left and right. So I've got that playing. Rewind it a little more. So I've got the tape inputs selected, and these are not muted, but yes, I have to route them because I think 7, 8. There we go. So now I can hear what's recorded to the tape, and you can see that tracks 5 and 6. It's kind of messy, isn't it? 1, 2, 5, and 6, and then on the mixer, 1, 2, 5, and 6. And if I want to pan stuff and solo stuff, these are the. I gotta do this. So I can. Sorry about the lighting. I can pan and do everything I want from there. And when I do that, I'm usually when I play back a tape such as this, I will do further mixing. So I like to mix, when I cut the tape, I like to do pre-mixing here, and then I'll do further mixing on the way out, so that by the time it goes back into the interface, into the computer, it's the mix is kind of what I want it. So basic EQ and panning, the panning is going to be done in the computer, unless I'm basically getting a stereo mix. Let's see, go back to the live chat. Wilmer says, do I know Richard? Okay, I got a few. So Unknown Underground says, summing through the Mackie Pro effects and DJM M-1600, then USB into computer, utilizing Boss noise compressor and running audio signals parallel to leads as helped power packs separate from audio. So Unknown Underground, that seems, you've got Unknown Underground. So you've got a Boss B1180, you've got a Mackie Pro effects mixer, USB into computer. So are you recording into the Boss and then into the computer? And while you answer that, I have to keep pushing that. Wilmer says, do I know Richard Wright's solo album Broken China? It was recorded through a Mackie 24 channel mixer and onto DAT recorders. Sounds great. I've heard some of it. I need to get that album. I'm a big Floyd fan, and it's kind of, that one is, I've heard some of it, and it hasn't, I guess I have to find it on eBay or something. It's not, maybe I gotta check into it. Some of those albums just aren't that available. And then, Unknown Underground says, epic setup, love your hardware and tape components. How does the ESX perform for sampling? The Electribe ESX1 here, the ESX1 is not that great for sampling. Like, it's a little slow. I've done it. It's not that bad, really, but it's kind of, it's not unlike sampling on the 404, where it's like you got, there's like you have to find. It's actually a little easier than on the 404. But the ESX for sampling itself is a little cumbersome. It can be done, and I have done it. I don't do it that often, but it's the kind of thing that once I have samples on my computer that I've transferred to the little data card here, and kind of filled this up with my own sounds kind of from the get-go, but I left room for me to add more. And I just kind of like, once I fill it up with my sounds, I kind of just keep it there. I let it ride, and that's like, that's the sound of the machine. I can tweak the sounds, of course, but that's kind of how my approach with the ESX. The ESX, I've been using the Electribe since I was 15, and that was the ES1, and I familiarized myself. I cut my teeth sampling and sequencing on the ES1. that my friend had, but I basically learned to use. I would read the manual and stay up all night, and he benefited from that. But I really like, I use this drum, it's my favorite, I think my favorite self-contained drum machine. That's if you're not counting the MPC. I don't think of them as just drum machines because they're whole, you know, they're kind of MIDI sequencers and not just drum machines. I mean, this one has some MIDI sequencing capabilities, but I think of it more of a drum machine. And as a dedicated drum machine, it is one of my favorite drum machines. I really like it a lot. So yeah, the ESX one is great. EMX? No, no, that's the ESX. The EMX one is pretty fun too. But you know, building a sample library. Sorry about the sloppy camera work. My iPad is a little cumbersome. Any other questions about the mixer? I know a lot of folks have asked me questions on how I route stuff. Again, sorry I don't have a photo of a DB25 connection, but that makes a lot of the routing here work. Let's see. Wilmer asks, do you transfer your cassette Porto Studio projects to your DAW? I haven't done a lot of backing up. I usually, the projects that I do on here, and that's not including one-offs, like I'll do spontaneous jams that I don't really intend to do much with, but sometimes, you know, things can develop. But as far as the 4-track, I haven't really imported the audio stems into my computer. I got the cables recently to kind of set up. I know I could have done that a long time ago, but I just haven't gotten around to it. Usually I just sum the stereo mix and call it good. I usually just kind of, like, the projects I do in here are like entirely in here. That includes the mixing, the mastering and digitizing will be done in computer, but that's a stereo mix typically. So, no problem, Wilmer. So, let's see. Oh, that's good. But the 4-track, yeah, it's usually. Oh, all right. Sorry, my device died, so I had to. I don't know if it's a few still there. Thanks. I had to reboot. But that's the rundown. I will answer any final questions on the Tascam mixer or how I have things connected, or if anything else stuck out to you. I'll be happy to answer those. But yeah, it's a very. I know it seems like a lot, but it is I guess a lot in a certain context. It's more gear than I've previously had when I was originally getting into it. But this I don't need to upgrade anything at this time, but again, I think eventually I would want to get a 16-track reel-to-reel. Not that it's completely necessary, but it's a machine. It's the kind of machine I would like to invest in sometime in the future. I'm okay with this 8-track. I think it sounds great. And this 8-track is I love the cassette 8-track, as you guys probably know, seeing my channel. Again, like the next step. For a lot of this stuff, the next step for me is to, I'm finalizing a workflow process that's incorporating Ableton Live. So I do want to use Ableton Live a bit more in terms of fine-tuning the arrangements of the songs as opposed to doing it how I previously did it. And there's always exceptions, but that is one. That's one thing that I'm refining right now. I'm still getting oriented with some of the details. I just got Ableton 11. Do you guys have any experience with Ableton 11? Because I think there's some. Yeah, I do know Arion. I like their Ableton 10's pretty good. I really like their Electric Castle album. That one's got some cool guests on it, and actually, I think it was on MySpace. I talked to the guy from Arion, and I was like, that would be a cool animated thing. He's like, yeah, but that would cost millions of dollars, and pretty cool though. I thought it would. I thought when I listened to that album, it sounds to me like, I don't know. It's I can see it animated kind of in the style of like, you know, like those older, like those old Lord of the Rings animations, you know, that kind of Middle Earth almost vibe. That's what I hear anyway. As an aside. Oh wow. Are you're I think he is. He's overseas somewhere. I forget where he's from. Um, but right on, what is your acquaintance with him, Wilmer? That's funny because I do remember talking to him. That's cool. He liked it. I'm glad. That's rad. That's awesome. Well, look at that mixes. And so you sand on his solo album? You sand? Sorry, that might have been a typo. Might be. Oh, you sang on his solo album. Oh, right on. That's great. He seems like someone that'd be fun to collaborate with. Oh, sorry. That's awesome, Wilmer. That's cool. He seems like a lot of fun to work with. I like his work. I like his albums. He's got a lot of vocalists that you know that are great. Even I can't like Fish is on his album. Fish is a good singer. Like he's just one that pops to mind immediately. I wonder if there's a vinyl of that. Into the Electric Castle is probably my favorite project that I'm aware of his. I'm gonna have to listen to more, but yeah, I like that stuff. It's great. Let's see, I think we have enough juice. Because I have to, sorry, I'm tethered here. But, oh, I guess I got my amplifier. I usually plug in my microphone from over here. I usually plug it in right there and capture the tube amp when I can play it loud. I can't always play it loud, though. Yes, let's try that. Are there any other, I'd like to know if there are any other questions on how this situation is all routed. So I think I may have covered everything in this video. Oh, back to live chat. Oh, right on. Ergen, that's his name. I remember now. That would be cool to hear that interview with Gilmore. I'm a big Floyd head too, so as a lot of people that know me know. This thing, let's see if it's still routed, because that's fun. It's just fun to route it like that. I love that. That's maybe you can hear the machine going, but that's, yeah, I love the space like that. It's one of the few items that I would, if I had to downsize, that would be a keeper for sure. I thought about upgrading the desk, but it has the connections I need to do the specifics that I want to do. You run out of channels, don't you? You know, and eventually I want to get into multi-track acoustic drums, because I have my drum kit right here with with my shirt on it, and it's a stand. I don't play it as often as I'd like, but I'd like to be able to multi-mic that drum kit and cut it to tape. That would be great. Let's see, live chat. Let's go over here. Do I prefer modern mixers? Well, I don't have a preference on the mixer age, this does have a, I mean, I'm acclimated to the sound of this, but that's just because I've been working with it for a few years now. But I'm familiar with the sound, and it's, um, I'm familiar with the sound, and it has the connections I need. If I were to upgrade to a modern board, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I think that there's some features that are nicer. They're cleaner. See the cheeky micro Korg? Oh yeah, of course, the micro Korg. Cheers for the ESX update. Yeah, I love the ESX. Again, I've been a Korg Electrab user for like 16, 17 years now. It's been a while. Quite intimate with them, and I love them. They are super fast with like I can come up with something like that on those, and I love it. Let's see, what year is it from? I think this is an early 90s, early to mid 90s, I think. I have the manual. I can't remember. I have resorted to the manual in some cases. There's some qualms about this desk that I'm not particularly fond of. There's just some routing issues I have, and I don't know if a modern mixer would resolve some of that, and that's really kind of why, but it's like I have such old connections that it's hard for me to get into something else that has all the routing I need without. And I also thought of getting I've also thought about getting a patch bay that might make things a little easier for routing, but I haven't integrated a patch bay just yet. Any suggestions on patch bays is welcome as well. Yeah, the micro Korg is a lot of fun. It's one I've thought about getting rid of, but it just kind of sticks around, and I don't mind it. You know, I thought about replacing it with like the DW. What was it, the one of those older Korgs, and like, nah, you know, it works just fine. The Behringer, some of those Behringer mixers aren't too bad, but it depends on your application. Like this isn't the most pro, but this it's a little noisy, but again, I'm not really afraid of that. I'm quick with this. My cat likes to jump up here and push the buttons, and you know, there's been times where I'm like recording vocals, and my cat jumps up here and like mutes the channel and I can't hear myself, and I look over and my cat's up here. It's like the one place that she gets up onto my desk, because there's not a lot of surface for, you know, cats to get up, but this is right here is where she tends to go. It's kind of funny. You know, it's what you gotta deal with. I come back home sometimes, and all of my knobs and things are in different positions, or you know, my buttons, because I have this routed by default a certain way, where it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there's 3 pairs of 8 making 24 channels, so 17 through 24, 9 through 16. All of these, I don't label, if you notice. I don't label, so let's see. Mesa Boogie Guitar Amps, sold them and rebought them. If I decide to sell my micro Korg, I'd probably want to another one after 2 weeks. Yeah, I mean, I get that too. So a lot of people regret selling stuff that they get that they haven't used in a minute. I don't have many regrets. Sometimes you got to buy and sell to discover where you want to, like, to kind of get the experience in order to refine, like, oh, now I know that this is what I want. There's some things I feel like I would miss, some other things not so much. Like, hey Tony, how's it going? Welcome. We're discussing gear. I guess you could say it's the gear acquisition, because there's some things that I would miss, some things I wouldn't if I had to get rid of things or make room for other replacements. I've done that. I don't mind. I'm not afraid to change something out. I don't I don't get attached to certain things, but other things it's like, you know, you get quite familiar with, so it's hard. So some of it's a workflow thing too. Like I could replace an MPC with a newer one, and you know, it might make things quicker for me. But I already have a library of sounds. You know, you kind of get committed to something. It's Tony. Let's see. Tony says he knew me from elementary. Would you F-15s and fighters? Tony Sullivan. I think which class would that have been in? I'm trying to remember. Tony. Interesting. I do remember drawing pictures and stuff like that. While Tony responds, sorry, this chat thing is not staying open. Let's see. Unknown Underground is saying, any way to connect the EMX synth pads to a MIDI keyboard, struggling to set up for life. It's a monophonic. The EMX isn't going to do, the sequencer on the EMX is monophonic, so you can't, Griswold. Oh, that's a little bit. Sorensen. Oh, because I was reading your name. Yeah, Sorensen. Sorensen Griswold. Wow. I do remember. Right on. That's cool. Wilmer says he sold a lot of gear he hadn't used in ages, but something like the microKORG just feel gonna regret. Yeah, I might regret it myself if I sold that one, even though they're pretty accessible, pretty fun tools overall. I don't know, there's something about it, it's the personality. That's really cool. Man, you can hear that just... This one's another cool one. It's like, I don't always use it, and sometimes like sometimes I can't, it's not that easy to program, like, and the manual looks like a science math book from, you know, from the 80s, and it's just, it's kind of like that, but it's one of those things that it's like, I would be kind of bummed if I didn't have it to play with. I just bought a couple floppy disk patches on eBay so I can get some new sounds, and maybe that might invigorate. That's the Ensoniq VFX SD. I don't know if it's mirror imaged for you guys, but the VFX SD has just got a really interesting sound, and it's got floppy disk storage, and it's a lot of fun to play around with. I think that did Mike Oldfield use the Ensoniq VFX S? It's kind of like the SQ1. I think this is a successor, and people like the SQ1 because that's an analog filter, and this one's a digital filter. It's one of those nuanced things. That's pretty cool, though. I didn't know. I might have read he was a user. I read that I'm a big Porcupine Tree fan, so I read that Richard Barbieri of the Porcupine Tree used one of those too. So it's got a cool, quirky sound, but it's one of those things that has such a unique character. Oh, I didn't know it was on Tubular Bells too, but it's not the most, like I was saying, it's not the easiest thing to program, and you spend, you know, that's the thing. I'm a synth geek, for sure, and the one thing about getting a synthesizer, especially like the DeepMind is amazing, but it's got like 2,000, or was it like 1,028 different memories, and that to me is, I'll never find something, you know, I'll never be able to find bank, what sound did I like? It was bank A sound 37, and then it's got like A through H. I don't know. It's just kind of it with that many sounds, as programmable as this is with the active panel. The thing about something like this is that you tend to just scroll through the presets more than you do actually interacting with it. Like you'll mess around and fine tune it and play with the filter and stuff, but like as far as like deep programming and really getting into it, that's more often. But with something like this that's only got 128 sounds, you can pretty easily remember where a sound is, and it does have an interesting kind of category convention. But you could spend a lot of time. That's the thing about like getting a new synth. It's like it's not just about having a new toy or new sounds. It's part of the sound architecture of part of the sound architecture is like this is my palette. Like these patches on here are I've built or modified, and you know like everything on here is like mine. That's why I like samplers, is because samplers have like when I got the MPC 1000, I started 0 sounds on that thing, and then I spent the last I don't know 7 years building from scratch my sound library that I can just load and import into this one if I want, and so on. But the this something like this tabletop synth, the let me just flip this around. So something like this that's got a lot of sounds. I'm gonna spend more time, like I love this thing, but I'm gonna spend more time scrolling through the presets more than I am actually going to program the thing. I'm still learning the programming and sequencing on this one, for example, but now you get a lust for a new synthesizer, and then it's like, then before you know it, those sounds, like you don't spend enough time getting acquainted and refining one thing. You kind of get spread out, and that's kind of the danger. And that's why I'm trying to like limit myself and go, all right, this is kind of the barrier here. I'm gonna go ahead and read some of this live chat. Let's see. So the Korg Micro X is a nice synth to complement the Micro Korg. The Micro Korg is a kind of cool complement to a lot of synths, and that's why it lives where it lives, and it's been there. Let's see. Speaking about Steven Wilson, do you like Jethro Tull remixes Steven did? Wilmer asks, Wilmer, I have the Aqualung. Sorry, grab my chair. I have the Aqualung LP on the vinyl, and I like it a lot. It's different. I understand the purist thing. You know, there's the Beatles remixes that I think are great, because you can hear different. You know, the originals are what they are, and they're fantastic. But I also like good remixes because it changes the context of things. Like, and sometimes it is better. Like in some cases, it's like, wow, I didn't. The clarity is just better. But in other cases, it's like it can lose its it can lose a certain vibe about it. And you know, that's why I like to kind of have both. If anything, I think that they're a good exercise in comparison, because I'm an audio nerd. So what I like to do is I like to hear an album or a song, and then hear the remaster, and kind of compare the differences. And it's a bit of ear training that goes on. But yeah, I'm all for the remixes. Not as a replacement, but as a nice addition. I would rather buy a remix, an album that was like entirely remixed, than I would remastered. It's like how many times does an album need to be remastered? It doesn't do much for me, and unless they're actually going to the original tape sources and refining it, and actually making it like a cleaner cut, and you know, like a better generation of tape or something like that, I don't think it's really that worth it. Let's see. What's that keyboard? Which keyboard, Wilmer? I guess you were mentioning. Let's see. Yeah, that's like the plugin preset. Yeah, plugins. I mean, there's no difference. I mean, plugins are just virtual reality. I don't use plug-in instruments. I'm okay with I like effects. Like the glue compressor in Ableton is fantastic. I really like that compressor a lot. Let's see. Which synth were you inquiring about? Oh, the one below the microphone. That's the DeepMind. This guy's the DeepMind 12. It's a fantastic synth. I use it a lot. Though again, it's falls for me in the category of too many presets, and it's just I like being able to have presets, but in order for me to take full advantage of this, I have to write over 1,000 presets, and that's, you know, I might do that over the course of 10 years or something, but I got to be committed to this instrument, and I wouldn't mind. RDKAE45 says hi. Hello. Yeah, that's the Behringer. It's based on the DeepMind 12 is based on the Juno 106 apparently, which I think is a cool synth, but I think the collector's market is kind of made it a bit overrated. When you use this kit, does it work with your computer? Yes. What OS do I prefer? Let's see. These are good questions, guys. Thanks. Let's see. Yeah, Tony's, when I use this kit, it does work with my computer. Earlier I was discussing, I'm sorry, I'm over here. There's a Scarlett 18920 on this rack here that's connected to my computer. Oh dear, sorry, I'm tethered because my unit's done. I have a computer sitting right over here behind the symbol. Oh, you can see it right there. Oh, there it is. That's my computer connected to the interface. So everything in my mixer can go to this tape machine, that tape machine, or the interface. So I have everything routed here, and just I can record the tape, I play the tape back, put it through the interface right to the computer, and so everything is integrated. When I record to tape, I don't record any MIDI clock. And when I used Ableton, no, sorry, for my previous projects, I'm pretty familiar with Logic Pro, and I just would have it just run like a virtual tape machine. And then I'm using Ableton, and now Ableton has the tempo follow. So if I have a drum machine going, I can have Ableton follow the tempo and then map things to the grid, which can be handy. And that's something I'm really starting to get into. I'd recently upgraded to Ableton 11, which I think has a lot of useful useful tools like the tempo follow and being able to comp takes. For me, as a non-vocalist doing vocals, it's very helpful. So I hope that answers your question. What OS? I do run a Mac, so Logic and Ableton are my DAWs of choice. Wilmer says he bought a Juno 106 back in '04 for 400 euros and sold it in 2005. Yeah, they're over 2,000 now. This is your biggest regret. Yeah, you can get great plugins, Wilmer. That's the thing. That's interesting is that you know, you can get a great Moog plugin, you can get a great Space Echo plugin. Certainly, if you're in the box and your environment's there, it's great. There's merits to that. I mean, there's a part of me that envies that someone can just have a basic controller and a computer and be able to just basically get everything done, where it's like I require space and power, and I don't even want to talk about my cable situation right now. That's nuts. Let's see. And then there's one more over here using Mac version of GarageBand. Hey man, I've used GarageBand. It's basically Logic Pro Lite. So if you're familiar with GarageBand and then you just upgrade to Logic and you have a good solid foundation, and there's nothing wrong with starting there. I mean, I started with a Red Fostex digital 8-track digital machine that was cumbersome, and a Radio Shack mixer, and a Yamaha keyboard, and a drum machine, and a karaoke machine with karaoke mics. It's not handy, but yeah, that's what I started with. And there's nothing wrong with starting there. It took me well over 10 years to accumulate the knowledge and the gear that I have, and I'm still scratching the surface on some of this stuff. it's a language I just want to learn, and I was able to finance stuff and blah blah blah. But it's really it's really just focusing on one thing and looking for deals like Craigslist, Shop Goodwill. I mean, you know, you can find really good deals if you know how. Some things I've gotten for free and fixed it, and it's fine. Like I had a coworker give this to me, and I've replaced a chewed up gear and a belt, and it's fine. And he got it, and someone was dumping it basically because it didn't work. And little things like, you know, certain things like that, if you have some.
My apologies.
Oh wow, there goes my watch. Certain things like that you can certainly you know, come up on with some, you know, minor soldering skills, or just a, you know, screwdriver and cleaning stuff out, or finding good deals. And you know, let's see, and then they're sort of a hybrid person. I've got a real Hammond, says Wilmore, with a Leslie, and a plugin. He uses both, and also an Art Pro. Art Pro sounds pretty cool. I mean, having, yeah, exactly. I mean, you will get there. I'm not there, so to speak. I mean, it does appear like I'm in a position. I'm in a situation where I'm able to turn a bunch of things on, and it feel, you know, like when I was 17, walking into Guitar Center and playing two keyboards at once, or my friend was over there playing a drum machine and I'm playing a keyboard, and he's looking at me and we're like, this is amazing. And we go home and to our rudimentary stuff, and we're like kind of where, you know, it's just not very inspiring to go from all this gear. It was just like you know, couldn't afford it. You just do one thing at a time and get to know it really well and dive all in, because you don't need a ton of stuff, says the guy with the racks of stuff behind him. But I gotten albums done with very minimal stuff, and I've paid my dues to get to a point where I'm like, wow, I you know. But there's inherent problems with this kind of thing. Like, I don't use something like this near as much as I can. I more have something like that because I can, and that's great and everything. But it's like it doesn't really add much to that. You know, like there's like the JV1080. I'm never gonna program it. It's kind of there because it's a classic, and I'll use it every once in a while. But it's not like an essential piece of kit. It just kind of sticks around, and you know, you gotta kind of make those decisions for yourself too. You have to, you know, having space and the logistical thing of like, you want to see the cable situation I got? I mean, come on, like that's not even like, if you look under my mixer, like here, see it, like don't get me started on the cable madness, and that's my poor cable management. But there's some downsides to having, you know, like there's times where it's just something doesn't work, and I don't know what it is, and you gotta fix this stuff. Like sometimes a key on my microKORG doesn't work, and I've cleaned it out a few times, and I gotta clean it out again. And you know, you just have to kind of this space and the logistical aspects. Like, I don't think a lot of people factor that in, because it's like, oh, I wish I had all that gear. It's like, well, where do you put it? I mean, you get this many keyboards. Well, guess what? You got to spend about as much as a keyboard to get this stand alone. You know what I mean? Like, I could, and then you initially think like that, like, oh, I could get a keyboard, and you know, or I could get something that makes new sounds. But it's like, no, it's like getting a drum set. It's like, well, if you have crummy hardware, the hi-hat stand's not going to stay still, and you're going to be fidgeting with it more than you are actually playing. So in those kind of situations, like those are factors. Like, this is a pain in the ass to keep balanced where it is on this. This is basically a keyboard stand, and that's on like that's a second tier, but it doesn't get close enough, and I have had to, like, if you shake that, it's gonna go slump. I've had one of my cats jump up there and it went plump, and I have to like balance it and like tighten it every time, and it's kind of a pain in the ass, and I want a new solution, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. But it's just one of those little tiny logistical things about kind of having a gear like a hardware situation that's like a headache. I've sweat and cursed profusely trying to keep this thing still, and it's still like it doesn't work out. It just won't come close. Like it wants to be about here, and yeah, it's pretty frustrating. But that's just one of those elements of that. So you've used it so long, you can get you can get super pro recordings out of GarageBand. Italians are probably gonna be jealous of your spaghetti-like cables. I wouldn't be jealous of the spaghetti. Yeah, and then the Russians will be like, your gear, you mean our gear. Oh yes. But in the end, owning a personal studio is gonna pay off. Imagine doing all the stuff you want to do in a professional recording studio. That's funny you bring that up because I have maybe not a big professional studio, but I have paid. I've paid to work in studios. I've paid people to record me basically, and it's more like, all right, I got a song. All right, set up the drums. Okay, you got to perform the part. You got to focus on the part. You don't get the time to develop the sound. And I'm so much invested in the sonics that like I don't like to record something unless the sounds are there. Like if I have a sequence going, which entails my drum machines, maybe a couple of the synthesizers, going through the mixer. Once I have like, all right, gotta EQ this, I gotta do this, I commit to a mix before I even hit the tape machines, and I usually just will, I mix as I go. It's like, all right, this is the snare sound, this is how it's gotta work, and I've learned to work that way, and capturing the sound. To me, the sonics are such an important part of the writing process for what I do. And I know a lot of people will work in a computer and do the same thing, spending a lot of time just tweaking and finding that snare sound, right? But yeah, it does pay off to. I think it pays off to invest in your own equipment and in your own gear in the end, because learning it has been fantastic. Like being able to sit and learn about, I've had to learn from myself by necessity, partially. I had to be able to engineer and connect everything. Like I had to figure out the MIDI situation, the MIDI logistics. Like imagine spending a day just connecting the MIDI cables, and then another day just connecting the audio cables. It's like that's the kind of stuff you have to do. Like I moved earlier this year, and getting the studio set up sucks. Like it's a nightmare. Like tearing down and setting all of this up. It's like I don't want to shuffle stuff around, because it's like once something settles, it kind of finds its home, and I like it that way. It's kind of a logistic, like this is on this MIDI channel and this is on this channel on this board, and that's why you don't see any labels there, because I kind of know where things are, and I kind of remember the 13 different MIDI channels that all these boards and synthesizers are on, and that part of the logistical aspect of connecting stuff I've had to learn. The MIDI thing is I still struggle with. Like this, I don't know if it's how I have it connected, but I get a lot of hanging notes on the Moog, like just ringing, sustaining notes. I have to turn it on and turn it back off. And if I'm recording and that happens, it's a nightmare, because I have to start again and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, let's see. It's just be able to mix yours, Yeah, I like to mix my own stuff. I know I have an idea of how it should sound. So let's see. You use Fuse Studio Labs, Porta Studio plugin, and the Waves Factory cassettes, and it's really close to the real Porta Studio. Wilmer's owned about 9 cassette studios in the past. So do you know the Fuse Audio Labs? I'm not familiar. I didn't know that there was like a 688 emulation. Is it just the sound, or do they kind of emulate that quirky matrix interface that it has. I mean, I like this. I liked the sound of that board. Mine was noisy. It was noisier than this, but I liked the sound of the 688. But I'm not going to argue with the sound of the 238. I think it's an amazing machine overall. Like, it's probably my favorite tape machine. Is that 238 that's in that rack there. It's kind of an indispensable tool in my current process. So I just love it. I think it sounds great. It works well. I had one problem where it ate one of my tapes, and that was probably because I was play rewind. It might have been me, could have been the tape formulation. I'm not exactly sure, but that's really the only issue I've had with my 238. All those recorders had their own specific problems. They do. You know, that's another thing about the hardware is like there are some inherent quirks with everything. Sometimes you get along with it, like you know, it's like a violinist that has their one violin. They just kind of know where all the little nooks and crannies and little, you know, little nuances of the whole thing. Let's see, I've got a Tascam 4-track digital recorder. Yeah, which 4-track was it? So if you thought you would use it every day, but you've only recorded like 3 songs on it. Working on those little recorders. I mean, you got to think of the market of those recorders is those little digital, well, and Porta Studios, but Porta Studios were kind of a different market in a sense. But those digital Porta Studios, when they were coming out, it's more like you're a guitar player and you just want to have like you want a sketchpad demo maker that's easy and functional, because a lot of those guitarists, songwriter types, well, not a lot, but some of them can be very technologically challenged, so they would just, you know, want something that's just like straightforward. And that's kind of what I started on with my songwriting, is I'd write a song and then use those little Porta Studios and just build my song. Yeah, the FD4 and FD8. I've had the one I was familiar with is the Fostex machines that were digital, with the MR8. And I bought one of those on Shop Goodwill because the MR8 is a lot of, it was one that I was very familiar with, and I just found one for kind of dirt cheap, and I was like, well, might as well have one, because to me it's like a legacy product that I wish I had sessions, like our multi-track sessions existed. None of those multi-track sessions exist from that era for me, unfortunately, but we didn't really know anything about, you know, backing our cards up to the computer. We didn't really have our own computer at that time. We're talking like 2005. No, if you're a high school student in 2004, around 2004, if you were in high school, middle class, lower class, you didn't have your own computer. Your family, you had the house computer that everyone shared. And back in those days, kind of makes sense that it wouldn't use it, since none of them have at least 20 tracks. Well, there's bouncing on those machines, so you can basically record something and then consolidate. And I've done some I'll bounce a lot on the 4-track. That's just kind of how it is. When it comes to the 4-track, for me, I like it for just the immediacy of just being able to make a mess. I kind of use it like a canvas in a way for projects. Like I particularly kind of commit to the 4-track for my SME projects, which I've been doing, not on the 4-track, but I've been doing the SME project since I was like 12, where I made my first cassette album, if you will. That I kind of, it's more of like a comedy, like a caricature, kind of like a South Park, where it's a lot of it's like a parody or a caracature, or it's just like a farce, you know. That's really improvisational and experimental, and I can make a cranky noise, and that I typically will dedicate some tapes to, like a SME project, when I feel like just purging and like saying anything I want and experimenting and trying to see, oh, well, does this work? Oh, that doesn't work. That sucked. That's pretty funny that it turned out really bad. And that using the 4-track in that way for me is kind of a nice, I don't know, it's cathartic. You know, I think everyone should have their own space where they're able to just like basically just have somewhere to just kind of let out any let your energy out, and it doesn't matter if it sounds good or if it is good, you know, like it's, I guess you could say it's like the equivalent of just like making doodles and drawing like you know, penis doodles or fart jokes or whatever. That's kind of what the SME projects are on here. Some of it's a little more sophisticated than that, but some of it's really not. It's just kind of whatever fun idea I have at the moment. Um, let's see, 4-tracks are for recording acoustic Pink Floyd type stuff. Um, I like to do it for that kind of stuff, but I do a lot of electronic kind of like backing tracks on my cassette, and I like to use it for a lot of different styles of stuff. Like I've done acoustic songs, I've done like raunchy songs, I've done I don't punk kind of stuff on there, you know. Let's see, Wilmer says he can get an FD4 for 30 euros, but he's got a Pro Tools HD rig, so if you feel like the FD4 is fun to play around with, like, I mean, obviously you're not gonna do any serious projects on the FD4. You might create a stem that might end up in Pro Tools, but you're not going to finish your masterpiece in the FD4. Think of it, I would think of it more like I would think of the FD4 more like a kind of a sketch pad or experimental thing, or just a place to kind of you know, write slop and see what comes up. I mean, I like to do that with the 4-track. I like to just kind of scribble and see, you know, you just start by scribbling and then, oh, this is turning into a face. You know, that is the kind of thing I do on the 4-track. I just kind of hit record and go and see what comes out of just, you know, it keeps me on my toes. It invigorates that kind of process, and that's why that's my association with the 4-track. I currently have 2 machines. This one's my main machine, the Mark 424 Mark II. I have a 414 Mark 1. I kind of want to upgrade to the Mark II just because I kind of like the aesthetic better. Let's see. I thought the recording digitally, though I like recording digitally since I don't think genre necessarily dictates the style of recording, though that can be disputed. I think, you know, trap music wouldn't be trap music if it wasn't produced the way it was. Same with boom bap. It's kind of like you gotta have the tools for that. But you can, you know, with the recording medium, you can record any style of music and make it funky and work. I just, you know, just not as many. I don't think as many people do that when it comes to recording on tape. It's like I'd be interested to hear like a trap beat like incorporated in a 4-track. You know what I mean? I don't like the drums of trap beats, but there's a lot of interesting chord voicings and melodies that come out of that style of music, and I would be interested to hear them kind of take different twists and turns with it, as opposed to like, it's such a formulaic process. It's like, oh, you gotta have the 808, you gotta have the flam hats, and it's very like, this is what you do, where I mean, I do that for my own convention when it comes to recording. Like I have my own formulas, if you will, but I also just kind of like to break out of those formulas and go, well, what happens if I start a song this way? Or what happens if, you know, you ask yourself what happens, and then you just kind of see it, and it's like, oh, it works, it doesn't work. And this is a great gate, you know, the 4-track for me is a great gateway into that. Even though I've always been doing it, but it's a good, healthy reminder for me to just like let the cards lie where they fall, and mistakes and all, you know, crummy mixing decisions, crummy performances, or accidents, or oops. Sometimes great things happen and it's funny, but you can't take it too seriously when you're doing something like that. You just have to remove yourself so much from, it's like, you got to do that. Quarter Pounder says, what do you think about the Tame Impala work on the BR-864 and 1600? I was not aware that that guy, what's his, I'm sorry, his name, I've watched a bunch of his videos recently, but I can't think of his name right off the top of my head. But the Tame Impala guy, I didn't know that he did projects on using those machines, but that's pretty cool, because my first album was my first like official album was Death the American Dream, and that was recorded entirely on the BR-1180, which is it's a scaled down BR-1600, less tracks and all. Was it mix? Let's see. Yeah, it's just nicer when it comes to mixing. Well, yeah, you have a lot more options. When you're recording on something like the 4-track, you're committing, and I like that process. I like committing to my decisions. You make decisions, and I think that if you're working too much in a DAW, you can come into a place where you're never going to commit to anything, because it's like, oh, we'll choose a kick later. We'll do it, and that's a good way to work, because you want to get the idea down, but making a habit out of that, like, I don't like to continue until the sound is there. That's just how I work. That's kind of my that's my convention. That's what I like to do. Let's see. Funny story. One of the Portage studios was broken, says Wilmer, and he brought it to a local music store at a local town, and the guy's like, you can wait for me fixing it, and he dropped one of the knobs and put his soldering iron on top of the Portage studio, and it started to smoke. Got a voucher afterwards. Wait, what did he do? You can wait for me fixing it, and he dropped one of the knobs and put his soldering on top of the Portage studio. Oh, I see what he did. He's like, he dropped it and then oops. Oh no. Let's see, and there's a pop punk called American Hi-Fi, who ironically records music on 4-track cassettes. I don't do it ironically. I just do it because it's more fun. But if you're doing it ironically, I guess that's an interesting take on it too. There's no right or wrong way to do it. I like to do it because I like the weird, stupid limitation. It's like, because I started my recording history that way, of just trying to figure out how can we do this, like simple multi-track stuff, because that wasn't available to me, and I didn't even know what it was or what to call it. So that's just one of those things that I had to make up myself. Like, oh, what if I connected this cassette deck to that cassette deck? Because the people did that. It's like, what you would do is you would record something on one tape, play it out of your speakers, and then on another tape deck you'd hit record, and then you could add a vocal or a drum or whatever while you're listening to that coming out. And that's basically what I was doing in my earliest recordings. And it was like, you think you're being innovative and stuff, and it's like, really, you just, multi-track is. I didn't know anything about multi-track recording, but that's effectively what I was trying to do. The decisions you make on the spot are the right ones, just like recording the first take. Yeah, Wilmer, there is an element of truth to that. There's something about the spontaneity and the feel, and sometimes it's just like, yeah, that's it. You don't overthink it. I think that's part of it, and that's, I guess, like the guys from South Park, that's why they like to do an episode in 6 days, because you can overthink it, and it's like, you'll just not, at the end of the day, like, you might not even complete the original idea you had, because you're going to be like, no, it's not funny anymore, and those end up being like the funniest things, because it was like, and I think that element is true for, and why I like that kind of workflow, is because you end up just like going, well, this is it, okay, record, all right, now what? Okay, well, I didn't like that bit, well, add something on top of it, do something that makes it interesting. Those are the kinds of things you have to think about, and I'm not opposed to that. Like I said, I've been working crudely in that way, and so I'm not afraid of it. Some people are afraid of it. It's like, well, why would you have the drums married to stereo? You can't sidechain the kick and blah blah. Well, they didn't do that in, like, oh, the Beatles only had 4 tracks. Well, it's like the Beatles themselves didn't mix down their songs. They wrote great songs and they performed the songs, and the engineers captured it, and the engineers found a way to make the songs so that you could add more tracks. And those were the guys that were like, all right, well, we're gonna collapse this into 1 track so that we can add more. And that's just what you had to do. And there's nothing, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, if you have a great song and a great performance, no one's going to give a shit, except for another audio engineer who's like, man, the kick on that song sucks. And it's like, well, nobody's going to care about that if it's a great song and the performance is there. It's like watching a movie and there's not a perfect match cut. It's like you can tell that that scene isn't exact. Like, there's plenty of mistakes in films, but you overlook those mistakes unless you watch the movie 100 times, or unless you have an trained eye to like, oh, that lighting is inconsistent from shot to shot and blah blah blah. It's like, if the performance and the writing is good, people overlook all those small details, and that's the thing that from in my mind, song is king. So let's see. Sold your Casey says he sold his 424 recently and found a UAD Apollo twin. Still pretty conflicted on the decision. Hope the dude I sold it to gets a lot more use out of it though. It's a great machine. Yeah, the 424, I love it. I think for me it's the best 4-track Porta Studio. I like the Mark II particularly better than the Mark III. I think the Mark III is a little bit over featured for what I like, but I don't think it was a bad decision for you to get rid of the 424 and go with an Apollo if it's going to be the thing that makes your songs, gets your songs done. That's the important thing. If you weren't really using the 424 creatively, and it wasn't really anything that you were taking advantage of sonically, then it's not a bad investment for you to get the Apollo Twin. The plugin suite for those is great, but even though it is kind of like an Apple built-in ecosystem, but it's for a lot of people, it's worth it. I have yet to really dive into the Apollo stuff myself, but I wouldn't mind. Yeah, let's see. Started searching for the knob and just put the soldering iron on top of the Porta Studio without watching, thinking, oh no. That's terrible, Wilmer. That I work at a music store. That'd be so embarrassing to be like, oh, sorry, dude. That's a big mistake, isn't it? Quarter Pounder says, if you've heard of Inner Speaker album, the first EP, it was recorded on this BR-1600 and 864, drastically varying sounds, quality when required. I should hear Inner Speaker. I feel like I've heard the name. I'm gonna have to look them up. I'm gonna have to take notes on that. Let's see. You're right. I think it was. I agree 100%. What about the 414? Sold it 240. I have the original. I have the 414. Wilmer, and the 414 is. I like the piano keys on the 414. This has the digitally controlled ones, which is fine for a lot of stuff, but there's just something about the piano keys that's superior. I would rather have that than the digitally controlled ones. It's more responsive, and like you can do things that I like to do with the 4-track, like pushing the pause button in just a little bit, and the tape speed like jumps all over the place. And also, like, if you unpause it, it's rolling, where if you unpause this, the tape head mechanism comes up. You have to wait that second, and it's not immediate. So you can still punch in, that's all right, but it's not as, it's clunkier having the head come up and down when you push pause. Why? I just like the piano keys of the 414, and that's why I have 2 4-tracks. I got this one that's my main one, and then the 414 that's more of it's those piano keys. I'm telling you that it's a great I like that feature. Ardake, is that how I would pronounce it? Ardake 45. That's how I'm gonna say it. I would love to have a reel-to-reel to record my music on tape, since I do vocal harmonies and weird pen stuff. Well, if you know anything about how vocal harmonies were done in, the tape days. There's that famous story about Bohemian Rhapsody that they had to transfer the tapes because it was being played so much that the ferric, like the coating was wearing away. So it's vocals for me. I prefer to do in the computer, just because just because I'm not a tight enough vocalist to be able to pull it off. I've tried doing it that way. My first two albums were done essentially in a punch-in manner, and I have to comp anymore. Part of it's time. The other part of it's just like you want a performance and you want to be able to get the performance consistent, because it's always like, oh, I nailed that one part, but I flubbed on this part, and always, every time for me, not being a trained vocalist. And that's the reason for me comping is just like I get the best of all worlds, and it's just quicker. Like I can highlight a section and do that instead of rewinding. I've cut vocals on. I'm not afraid to cut vocals on tape for like my SME projects, but when it comes to like anything that I'm really precious about, then yeah, I'd prefer to do vocals in the computer, just because it's more feasible that way. Tascam 112, yeah, that I just use it as a stereo deck. I have yet to Wilmer, I have yet to use this like as a mastering or anything like that. I really just use it as a listening. Not that I listen to tapes that much, but I do have some tapes, and this is a great deck. So this is kind of my listening station. So I got a CD player, cassette deck, and my record player, and that I do. That's like my study. Let's see. So sorry. Wilmer says Mike Ofield had to re-record his Almadon album because the tape wore out, and he said it's for the better in the end. I've heard the first, and he's well, yeah, that's. I mean, that's not unlike having your computer crash and your hard drive die or something like that. Like, it'd be devastating. It would be really. It would be really. I mean, there's challenges no matter which way you go. I mean, both worlds have their benefits, their pros and cons, and there's endless videos about all that. It's kind of a hybrid scenario that I like, and everybody has their things. It's like you have to factor in the space to have stacks of stuff like this, and it's more expensive, and maintenance, like fixing the stuff up, that's you're ordering parts online, you're waiting for the parts, and then you're spending an afternoon doing this instead of listening to music or playing music. And sometimes it's therapeutic, and sometimes it's like really, it's when I got this machine up and running, it was very, very satisfying, and well worth it, because these machines are probably going for $300 to $400 now, and this machine was given to me because it didn't work. And it's one of those things that's like, if it was a pain in the ass to basically fix this thing up, because it had a gear that was busted, and I was fortunate to find the gear, but taking apart the cassette mechanism it's a nightmare. Tiny pieces, little screws, things behind other things, and it's scary. It's like, oh no. The deeper you go, it's like, oh dear. Kind of headache inducing stuff. But again, that particular one was worth it, just because I was successful and I have a great machine that's valuable. So if you can come up on stuff, you got to keep an eye out. Like I found this CD burner. This was similar to the CD burner that I was using in my earlier recordings. I found this CD burner for like $10. The guy that sold it at a thrift store, like they didn't understand. It's one of my better come-ups at a thrift store, actually. And I use this for listening to my CDs. The record player goes through here, and I basically monitor it. So that's just my pro listening station. I listen to records and CDs like almost every day, so or every other day. So that's So for me, it's important to have a high fidelity situation because I'll be listening to them on my headphones or my monitors. Oh, yeah, okay. My Dark Side of the Moon. Um, I'll be listening to them on my monitor, so my ears are really tuned to these and the room and everything.
Hi, London.
Hi, Pickles. And
look what
this.
Came. Look.
Hold on.
Look what came.
Great. have a friend. My friend painted this actually on a vinyl. It's a cassette on keys. I'll have to get a closer look, but it's pretty cool. But anyway, this listening station I like to listen to a lot of music through the speakers that I'm going to be mixing on because it helps my ear training, and I invest a lot into ear training. So if someone's like, "Oh, have you heard this album?" I don't know. I'll buy it, and then I'm lucky to be able to just buy things. I have a local record store, and I frequent there too. And I'll take chances on stuff, or I'll find I'll find some really cool rare thing or something great. Um, let's see. When you ordered something on eBay, do you have to wait for it to be delivered? Playing GTA Online in the meantime. Dark Side of the Moon, yeah. Well, I do. You do other things while you're waiting for it, and then this just sits there. This is sat under something taken apart for. That sat in my garage for half a year at least. Like it sat in the garage just. And then I decided to take another crack at it, for example. But yeah, you just sit there twiddling your thumbs, waiting to do that project. Thankfully, well, actually there's one thing, but really I don't have anything that's like needing high maintenance or replacements, and I've done that with a lot of stuff. Like this, I had to resolder the board. There's a PCB board underneath here, and it wouldn't calibrate on the Ensoniq, and I had to install a new battery. I've had to clean this guy a number of times. This guy I needed to get new, just knob caps really, but there's just certain maintenance things with vintage equipment that you have to do, and that's just part of collecting and getting gear. But again, if you get something dirt cheap or free and you are successful in fixing it up, then you have yourself something really cool. Like I have a R70 Roland drum machine that someone gave me, and it was sitting in a garage. It had like rat poop and cobwebs and a layer of dust this thick, but I opened it up, cleaned it out, works fine. And I just had to spend an evening doing that, but it's worth it because it's a cool machine that I use sometimes, and yeah, it's great. Ardake 45 says, I absolutely love rock operas, concept albums. That's why Queen, My Chemical Romance, and Pink Floyd are some of my favorite artists. I'm a big fan of conceptual albums. I like the storytelling. I like the narrative. I like to be able to. We live in a very playlist-oriented world, and I'm okay with playlists too. I love a good playlist. I'm just not very. I just don't have patience to make playlists or find playlists. Like I know on Spotify that's a big thing. I've started making a playlist on Spotify, and then I just get kind of disinterested, so I stick to albums. I guess it's just my stubbornness, or just but there is an art and a beauty to playlists for sure. But I do love the album narrative. Like Tommy is one that kind of has a rock opera or whatever. But there's a lot of great albums. Even in hip hop, there's some albums like that, and that's what I like to do. That's why all of my albums are like deliberately that. To me, that's what an album really is. It's not just like a collection of songs in my mind. Yeah, because you got screwed by someone who ordered a pair of monitors on eBay, and since then I'm suspicious. Who tell me? Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, doesn't eBay have protection? You know what I mean? I've generally had good experiences. I've generally had good experiences with ordering stuff online. There's been a few times that things haven't worked out, but that was more on the shipping. Um, I think things like I don't know, eBay should have some kind of buyer protection, as far as I know, and you get reimbursed. At least if you have credit cards, I know that you can typically get reimbursement for credit cards, but if you've been waiting a year, then you might be out of luck. Wilmer says he likes the Tommy soundtrack better than the original album, even though there's some shitty vocalists on there. There's some moments on this soundtrack that I like better. I just think I like the original album, but maybe that's what my ear is tuned to. I recently got this orchestral version that has this amazing book for the Tommy album. There's actually, I really like the rendition of It's a Boy. This is like a, I don't know, kind of an orchestral version. Some of it's really good, some of it's like kind of, I'm not big show to me kind of fan, but the artwork is fantastic in this book. There's even, look at that, that's Rod Stewart. And my kitty saying hello. We got a visitor. But there's some stuff on here. I mean, there's some moments on here that are fantastic. Like I love the in the overture that that guitars kind of part. They do that, but they do a call and response with the strings. That's super cool. That section is just fantastic in that rendition. And that's my review. Let's see. Um, Ardake 45. I'm working on a concept album, and I've been working on it for a year or two, and I'm not planning on releasing it until I'm in your 20s. Well, how are you? How old are you, Ardake 45? Let's see. Yeah, Oliver Reed's an actor. Correction. Marketplace. Dutch eBay. Oh, okay. Dutch eBay. I don't know if they have. I don't know if they have. I don't know if they have buyer protection. I wouldn't be familiar. Let's see. No, oh, this version, this Tommy version, that's the London, what is it? Some, I actually had a good customer of mine give this to me. It's kind of sweet. Again, not all of it's great. Some of it's pretty cringe, but Tommy, as performed by the London Symphony Orchestra and chamber choir with guest soloists. So Roger Daltrey and Pete Townsend, of course, make an appearance. The artwork is fantastic. I think this won like album package of the year in '74 or something like that is what I read when I was reading about this. That's what kind of a dork I am. I get an album, I sit and listen to it, and I read the Wikipedia, and I look at all the artwork, and I read about it. You start connecting dots, like, oh, this person that worked on that album, that produced them, that did this. There's all these connections, and I like connecting those dots. I get really enthusiastic and nerdy about it. Homer says, "Yeah, he owned that LP once in the past." Yeah, it's got some interesting moments. 13. Wow. You probably don't know about Marketplace. No, I wouldn't know. Wow. I started recording when I started semi-serious recording when I was about 13. I have cassettes that I was making. So keep at it, dude. Just make noise. Make the worst music you can. Like, have fun making the most horrible sounds you can think of. And if you're not laughing and getting a kick out of it, and maybe bring some friends and what I loved to do. Yeah, I think the Lou Reisner is the guy. That's right. You're right, Wilmer. What I loved to do, and when I was going to school, is I'd bring a friend from class over and we'd throw them in the ringer. Like, all right, we're gonna write a song about we're pimps. Like, you just throw out a premise, and then they would have to write a page of lyrics on the spot, and then like we'd hand them the mic, and it's like they'd hear the music and they'd just record, and it was always hilarious. They're inexperienced. You can hear that they're reading. I love it. It's so much fun. Like, have me pick Neff me the you can just yeah. I always liked throwing my friends through the ringer that I would bring home from school, and throwing them in on our projects. Like, people get uncomfortable recording. Some people, are self-conscious. I've I've always I've never been self-conscious in that way. I mean, you know, when you can be when you're vulnerable and not confident yet, but when you're just messing around, it's like you have all the confidence in the world to just um, let the cards lie, and I like that. That's that would be my, I don't know. Everyone has their own thing, but I would say that's a fun process to do. It's just that would be my suggestion anyway. Our take 45 is to make the most horrible noise you can think of and have a laugh doing it. Like just have a ball making deliberately the worst sounds you can think of and the worst lyrics, and like just play it with, like, do it with all your intensity, like just give it your all, and the worse it is, the better it's going to be, and that is a good place to start, and that's where I started, and I try to remember to go back to it. That's why my 4 tracks always leering at me. You looked at some of your stuff when you were 10 and enjoyed listening to how bad it was at writing. It's fun. I like going through I go through my stuff all the time. You find gems in there too. Like maybe there's a line, or maybe there's a riff, or maybe there's a chord progression, or a melody, or some kind of lyric, or some idea. There's always something that's just like, for me, it's sort of a continuation of like, you know, I always go back to my previous work, but that's just how I am. I mean, not everyone likes to, but I find that it's rich, because I've provided myself with so much that it's a very rich source of ideas. I'm still recycling ideas I come up with when I was, you know, 15 or whatever. You know, it's like, oh, that was an interesting melody. Why didn't I interpret that? You know, I'll use it, and then you find like maybe some chords that go under it or something. So that's yeah, that's a good way to go. What artists are inspirations to you? Any names? Any names as top 40 Philistines? What do you mean? Any names as top 40 Philistines? The artists that are inspirational are going to be like Stephen, for me, are like Steven Wilson, Porcupine Tree, Pink Floyd, Massive Attack is a big influence. Brian Jonestown Massacre, Beck. Those are probably my top 5. I mean, there's a lot of other stuff that I find just as good, but off the top of my head, those are probably like my top 5. Let's see. Yeah, Diego. I mean, you got inspired by a chord progression, Ambulance, My Chemical Romance. That can trigger from anywhere, can't it? Any name for us top 40 Philistines? It's let's see. Is there anything on? Are you asking if there's anything on the top 40 that's that I'm liking currently? Philistines, because if there is, you know, one artist that, I mean, I'm trying to get into some of the more modern stuff too. There's, I'm actually liking a lot of the songs on the Lil Nas X album. I really like his vocals particularly, but there's some good songs on there, I think, and it's in a more modern context, because I want to try to branch it out. And you know, of course I like a lot of classic rock, and I like a lot of the essential, like, prog albums, blah blah blah. I mean, I love that stuff, but I do want to kind of stretch, I do want to stretch into something that's different than what I am comfortable with at this point. Any artist that a simple folk would be familiar with? Well, yeah, I mean, I mean, Pink Floyd. I like the Beatles. I love the Who. The Beatles are a big influence in me in a lot of ways too, like their songwriting, and they were just so. They were like the first, like the front linesmen in a lot of senses in rock and roll, like in terms of recording. Like they didn't necessarily innovate and everything, but they were like kind of the first that like introduced it and gave other people permission to kind of do, like, oh, you can do that, you know. I grew up listening to a lot of gangster rap, so you know NWA, Tupac, Bone Thugs and Harmony was huge. Um, Easy E was huge for me. I loved a lot of that West Coast um, a lot of that like Ruthless Records and Death Row Records stuff that was out, you know, like '90s, late '80s, early '90s. BC Boys is big influence on me too. I really like a lot of that work too. All right, let's see. Massive Attack. Any artists at the age of 85? So Tupac, Good Life. She's even older in 2023 and Chill too. Where is that? Oh, my older brother introduced me to pop punk, so that's all I can really, that's all I really listen to. There's a lot of good pop punk too. When it comes to punk, I like, I guess, Butthole Surfers, Ween. How much? I guess you can classify Butthole Surfers as punk, but Butthole Surfers, Ween, Bad Brains, The Clash. Though you know, I'm partial to like London Calling and not so much Combat. What's the Combat Radio? Can't remember that one. That's got like a lot of like the Clash is one of those bands that I don't like any of their singles, and same with like REM. Like I like a lot of their stuff, but none of the singles. Don't like any of their singles. But there's, I guess, I grew up. Well, some of the punk I was familiar with anyway when I was bit in the '90s. I guess it was more like Green Day and like Blink 182. Yeah, London Calling is a good album. It's a really good one. That I guess it's like I was familiar with it because of the top five. Like it's always on top five greatest albums list, but it's just because it's such a unusual sounding record for its genre. It's a punk record that it doesn't sound like a punk record, even though the stylistically, like the fundamental style of it is, but like it doesn't sound like a punk record. And I think that's what is appealing about it to a lot of people. So it's appealing to me because it's easy to be punk and brash, but that's like produced. They have like, you know, horns and kind of a lot of different things production wise going on that was unusual for the punk rock ethos. But there's a lot of, you know, when it comes to punk rock, there's a lot of like subgenres. There's like thrash punk and hardcore, and like there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of different ethoses. Like some punk was just more about like how fast can you get and how, you know, how much, you know, there's just different attitudes that were associated with punk. But the kind of punk that I'm drawn to is like I like I said, it's like I like the Butthole Surfers. That kind of punk is what I like. Like they're not afraid to like kind of have a country sounding song or like just a cacophony of sound effects and just weird lyrics. And I don't know, that attitude is that kind of that's more of a punk attitude than it is like they don't have, some of their stuff's kind of like that, but a lot of it's just attitude. Let's see. I think if you finish your album right now, it could be considered a new genre. Well, why don't you? Here's one thing, and I'm going to leave here shortly, but one thing I want to say about that is that finish something. You don't have to finish an album you're working on right now, but always finish something and just put it out there. Don't be afraid to put something that's bad out there. Just put it out there and move. That's how you're going to learn and grow and move to the next thing. And you know, if what you have is going to be finished and it's going to be considered a new genre, then do it. Wilmer says, I always hated country music until I heard Johnny Paycheck stuff. What are your thoughts on country music? I still can't believe I'm into country music now as well. That's funny. I kind of feel the same way. My last single that I released was a country song. I do like a lot of good country. I'm kind of more in the, you know, I'm kind of getting into some of that like 70s rhinestone stuff like Johnny Paycheck. I like a lot of that stuff. I like kind of the, you know, like Hank Williams and a lot of Johnny Cash. Those are kind of favorites of mine. I hated country growing up too, but I love the sound of a pedal steel guitar. Like it's just, maybe someday I'll learn to drive one, you know. But they're beautiful sound, and I do like a lot of country, a lot of pop country. I mean, it's just pop music with a country theme, isn't it? Um, but I do like some old fashioned. I even like some bluegrass, you know. Um, I don't know. I'm excited for the new Alison Krauss, Robert Plant album. That the raising the basically the sequel to Raising Sam, which is a fantastic album, and the soundtrack to Oh Brother We're Out There was great too. Like I like that kind of like roots country, but country, you know, it's like it's a gateway. I'd love to release an EP right now, but then people would be dying for me to release an LP, and they aren't gonna get that for a while. Well, release something and then keep working on something else, and you'll get it done. It takes a long time to make an album, and that's why I'm trying to lean maybe towards writing some singles. That way, I have writing singles. I can be a little more consistent with an output as opposed to an album that could take, you know, 2 years, 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. I don't know. It depends on how invested. So my last album took that long because I had a hiatus of that, and that was because I was making videos for the YouTube channel, and that takes a lot of time too. And I'm happy to do that, but you know, it's a balance. Before I go, is there any requests that you'd like to see for a future video? I know this is just an impromptu thing. I thought I would clarify some things on a mixer, and we ended up, you know, having a good chat too. So that I think that interacting like that's great. But are there any videos in the future that you guys might want to see? Transmission. I will give it a moment while you guys type it. But yeah, while you guys are answering that, there is, I'm looking to, you know, I'm working on some pieces in the computer right now where I'm learning some new workflows in a new software that's going to end up with some, I think, some fresh, it's going to give me a fresh platform to kind of work with, and that way, I think it's going to be a lot of fun to find a new way to arrange a song as opposed to how I have done it, and it's going to give me grant me some new possibilities. So that's, you know, the start, and I'm excited to get the next project going, because I've got a lot of songs on the back, well, in the bag, if you will, and it's just a matter of like finding which songs are going to be pieced together. Let's see. Yes, film everything from start to finish when you're creating a new song. That I'd love to, but it's kind of a challenge to do that, because if you can see, like, trying to work a camera and focus on this stuff. I'm working on I'm trying to find the logistics of being able to do something like that, where I can just capture myself and not like worry about the lighting, because this lighting is, you know, this is just kind of set up more like a conference call, but I want it to look good, and it's, you know, that's the challenge, because if I'm engineering and trying to get a performance but also worrying about the camera stuff, it's really hard. I have to figure out a logistic of that, but maybe I can find a way to film something. Make a song in another artist style. That could be a fun challenge. Maybe I can find a way to play with something that's not inherently my own style. Any last requests before I head out, or last thoughts? Oh, screw the lighting. No, it's, you know, you want to be able to see what I'm doing too, you know what I mean? And that's the other thing. If I have a multi-camera setup and it's really tight in here, so finding a place where something doesn't get in the way, I'm gonna trip over stuff, and I already trip over this stuff, you know what I mean? Like, it's a logistical nightmare to try to film. I just haven't you know, I usually do things, tell the story after I do it. But yeah, last thoughts, guys. Thanks. I'd like to thank you all for staying with me, and I appreciate you guys' input. I will take all that into consideration. I'm looking to get my new project going. I'm going to keep you guys posted on that. But yeah, I think that it would be fun to set up and try to record. But yeah. Well, yes, it is night here. More like dinner time. But good night, guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you the next time around. I do have a Twitch I'm trying to set up. If you guys, sometimes I stream from my Instagram and my Facebook page under the name Land in Bulk or Magic Spiral, so you can find me on those social media platforms if you haven't. I'm always open to, you know, if you guys have messages or anything, you can email me at landinbulk@magicspiral.com, or you can direct message me on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. So yeah. Okay, before you leave, would you like to collaborate with me on something in the future? It's 5 in the morning over there, huh? Wow, what are you doing up so early? Well, send me an email at landinbulk@gmail or sorry, landinbulk@magicspiral.com, and we'll discuss some. Yeah, that's landinbulk@magicspiral.com. I'd love to. Oh, it's 8:15 for me. I'd love to see what your guys' thoughts are on that. Very nice, Wilmer. Drinking some wine that early. All right. Get this day started, man. All right, Wilmer and our Dick. Thanks for hanging out with me, guys. Remember, you can always contact me on Instagram or Facebook, or Magic Spiral or Land in Bulk. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Message me there, guys. Thank you for watching and being a part of this. I will see you guys next time. Cheers, guys. Bye.